Hi there. Welcome back to the Real Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in this week's very special episode, we're going to be looking at a little film called Gladiator 2.
Directed by Ridley Scott. And, man, I am bewildered by this film's release. Okay?
And its very existence.
Its very existence. Yeah. I honestly thought it was a joke.
100%.
Until I saw, the trailers in theaters. Even the release date. I was like, there's no way this is going to be a real film. But here it is. 24 years? When's the first Gladiator film came out? 2000.
2000, I believe, right?
24 years later, we're getting a sequel. And reading about how they wanted to make sequels to the first Gladiator film, and they're rolling around different script ideas way back, 20 years ago, and none of it ever came to fruition, probably because some of them were just, completely ridiculous.
Yeah, you heard, the main one out there was that bonker script about Maximus being sent back from the afterlife and becomes immortal, and he's moving through the centuries and ends up in present day and everything. It was just completely bonkers, nutso. Right? So there was a lot of crazy ideas out there.
It was so ridiculous. I think that one is probably the most famous one because they talk about Maximus becoming immortal as a curse, and the film would follow him through up to modern day World War II and Vietnam War and whatnot. It's just okay, guys, let's pull it back here a bit. Yeah. But definitely the first Gladiator film never felt like it needed a sequel. It was a pretty self-contained story. I mean, it's based on history, but it's not.
It's historical
trying
fiction.
to pretend. Yeah. Historical fiction. It's not trying to pretend to adhere to the facts or anything. It is making a drama that's entertaining and just entertaining. And it was. I mean, Gladiator. Did you?
Are you not entertained, Brian?
Right. I'm vexed by the release of a sequel.
I'm terribly vexed.
That first Gladiator movie, we must have watched this a million times. This is 2000. We were roommates in school starting in 2000, I think, probably watching a lot more movies in 2001 later, but we must have been spinning the DVD of Gladiator every few weeks.
Because we were just kind of building our collections, and Gladiator was a big movie at the time, and we probably picked that up shortly after it was released on disc. So it was just one of those ones. We got so much play early on because of, when it came out and when we were where we were in terms of kind of physical media, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then there was an extended cut of the movie released a few years later. I think it was 2005. I don't remember seeing the extended cut, but I do remember some of the scenes. Now, from what I understand, before watching Gladiator 2, you did go and watch the first Gladiator beforehand, right?
I did, yeah. I thought I was okay, because it's one of those movies where I watched it so often, and then it's sitting on my shelf, and I didn't have it logged in Letterboxd because it's one of those things you see it so often, and then my collection expanded, and there are so many new movies to see, so I haven't watched it in a couple of years. So I was okay, perfect excuse to go back, watch one of my favorite movies, and I was and I picked up the 4K extended cut, check out and see what that's all about, because I don't think I'd seen the extended cut before, and watching it through, I hadn't seen the extended cut. So it was kind of cool seeing, some of the additional scenes that were added back in. I think Ridley Scott's pretty famous or infamous for having his director's cuts / extended cuts. And typically I tend to like his extended or director's cuts a bit more. But yeah, it was kind of neat going back and revisiting this, because I remember initially seeing Gladiator, and I didn't love it right away. I liked it. At the time I was super obsessed with ancient Roman and Greek culture and history. I watched it the first time. I thought it was an okay movie, and then I kind of grew to love it a lot more. And now it's, I think you and I both have it marked 5 stars in Letterboxd there. So I do really love this movie now, and it was really cool kind of coming back, and it's it feels fairly timeless in terms of its themes and in terms of production value. like nothing really stood out. Like the tigers stood out a little bit, but not enough. They weren't like immersion breaking. And even back in 2000s, like that's pretty amazing that they were able to get that CGI. They were obviously kind of comped in or however they did it. But other than that, like all the shots of the Coliseum and everything, and the battles, I think we're all like that was back in the day when there's like, yeah, we're just going to stage the battles for real, right? It's like, this is a bunch of extras on sets, put them all in a bunch of armor and run at each other and capture it all. But like, it looks great. The themes are great. And then it really just goes to show, I think it took for granted. There was a time that like Russell Crowe was getting bad press for his temper or something. Maybe that was somebody else. I don't know. For a while, I felt like Russell Crowe was kind of getting a bunch of bad press there in the media. But looking back on his performance, it's like, okay, when people talk about like movie stars and there's that certain kind of charisma, and you look at, oh yeah, Russell Crowe, he took for granted. Like, yeah, when he's on screen, there's just something magnetic, right? Where he kind of pulls other people into his orbit. And then like even, you have like people like Joaquin Phoenix in there, right? Who's like, yeah, of course, a big movie star. And he even though he's playing this kind of whiny villainous character, but he's still got that presence where it's like, I want to keep watching this guy and see what he does, right? And like, it's filled with the last performance of Oliver Reed, R.I.P. was in that movie too. It got me pumped to watch the second one again for sure. Did you rewatch the first one again before going to see the second one?
I did not. I don't know what I was doing, but I just neglected my duties and knew full well that I was going to go see the sequel in theaters, and just said, no, you know what? I remember this movie enough. I want to go in, feeling however I do with my expectations. And then I ended up watching it the weekend afterwards, and it was really nice revisiting the first Gladiator film. Like, I've been logging movies on Letterboxd since about 2012, and I had not logged Gladiator. So it had been at least 12 years since I've seen this, which, sad face emoji right there. Like, it was like, how do I let these movies go by? And Of course, I have the 4K of this. The movie looks brilliant. It looks great on screen. Oh, yeah. It was fun to see on the big screen. I stuck to the regular theatrical cut. I was presented with the option when I boot up the disc. I'm like, do I watch the extended or do I refresh myself with the theatrical first? And maybe next year I'll watch the extended cut or something when, I'll probably want to rewatch Gladiator 2, and I'll do them in proper order this time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get an extended cut of Gladiator 2. Because as you said, Ridley is known for these extended cuts of films now. And like most recently, obviously, with Napoleon, another period huge film that did not land nearly as well as anyone I think would have hoped. Or it got it was already like 3 hours long. I think there's this. Well, let me just pull it up on Letterboxd. The first
it feels a lot longer than that.
158 minutes, nearly 3 hours. Napoleon director's cut at 204 minutes, so it's just about an hour longer. And you're in trouble when on Letterboxd there's a separate entry for the director's cut. Right. Because quite often, like Gladiator, there's no director's cut like option. You just watch Gladiator and log it. But Napoleon, there are two versions on there. It's kind of like Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think kind of set the bar of maybe we should have separate entries if the movie is different enough. So, for your Ridley Scott purists out there, and I don't know if we're those people, but we might need to watch both Napoleons. I think last time we talked about Ridley Scott on the podcast was The Last Duel, which was in our first big batch of episodes. And he hasn't done a whole lot since then. I mean, aside from Napoleon, House of Gucci, then Gladiator. So it's just like, we don't have much to catch up on there, which is always nice, but I have not been revisiting a lot of his older films either. Suffice to say, we will discuss spoilers on the movie without abandon. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, check it out. Come back and listen to the podcast here. You can come back and join us. But spoiler warning now, we will inadvertently drop those spoilers as we talk about the film.
Spoiling your childhood.
Yeah. I mean, I still can't get over that this movie has a sequel. And it takes place 20 years after?
16 years, I believe they said in the
16 years
movie.
after.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw out my first main criticism of the film, because this is the first thing I took away from the movie after the credits rolled, is that it just felt like they followed the exact same beats as they did the original one, where we've got a big battle in the beginning. There's death, there's loss. Our gladiator guy is captured, and then he starts fighting in some small town, like some I don't know, in not the Coliseum, like in one of these gladiator places in a theater.
It's another stadium, yeah.
Yeah, another stadium. Proves himself there, and then makes his way to Rome. And it was just like that same structure basically played out. And that's where I was like, this movie is going to have to work harder to capture me for the rest of the film. And spoiler alert, it did work harder, and I really did enjoy the movie by the end of it, even though like the first hour felt like it was identical to the first Gladiator. But sometimes when you're doing a sequel, why mess with a good thing? This is an established formula. It just kind of works. How do you feel about the movie? What are your general impressions when you first watched it?
Yeah, I will say that the similarities in plot between the two movies were not lost on me as I was going, especially having watched Gladiator, I think like the night before. I was like, okay, they got a clear template that they're kind of following, and I get it. It's like maybe a 24-year later sequel. It's like, we know this works, so let's not go too far to the box. And it's like, okay. But they did enough difference, like you were saying, where I felt like, okay, there were a couple little twists and turns. Some I guessed, some I didn't, some I was kind of shocked by. I think Pedro Pascal is becoming the new Sean Bean here, at least for historical epics.
Yeah.
He's gonna beat. He's racking up a death count on screen here. I mean, his character deaths as opposed to killing other characters, but. Yeah, no, I went into it with a pretty open mind because I had, held the first one in such high esteem. I was willing to give this, I was kind of predisposed to like this one, I guess, right? So I was coming in with the pro kind of bias. So take from that what you will. I'll just put things in context. But yeah, it was like, I was also coming in like, because the track record of Hollywood with legacy sequels or, 20-year later sequels, like, it's hit or miss, right? There's some really good ones, but for every good one, there's kind of like a mediocre or terrible one. But overall, it did. I don't know. I felt it kind of proved itself, and it was different enough, and the main characters, their journeys and motivations were different enough that I felt like it wasn't just a complete copy and paste. That there was enough to justify it. It's like, okay, they obviously had another story to tell, even though it followed the same kind of framework as the first movie, right?
Yeah. We should probably do a quick rundown of some of the actors here, because you mentioned Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
The gladiator himself here is Paul Mescal.
Have I seen him before somewhere else? I don't know. It doesn't seem super familiar to me.
With the power of the internet.
By the power of Grayskull.
He was, I don't know if you saw After Sun.
I did. Who was he in After Sun?
I think it was the father. There's only like two actors of that.
Well, that's why I was curious, because like, he does not look like that. What? I'm going to have to rewatch After Sun. I never would have placed him. That's crazy.
I don't even want, After Sun. Check it out.
I've seen it. It's just like, I remember the dad being like a skinnier dude. Like this one, he seems to be like bulked up quite a bit.
Yeah, he's definitely pretty ripped for Gladiator. And it's kind of funny too, even when you look back and see Russell Crowe in Gladiator, like everyone was like bulking up for those roles back then. And like watching Gladiator now is like this, I don't know, it's just this time capsule of all these actors who have continued on. Like Russell Crowe looks so young. Joaquin Phoenix, he looks so young. Connie Nielsen is also in the sequel here, playing the same character.
Like, I don't want to typically comment on how women look in general, but she looked so good in this one still. Like,
She's knocking it out of the park for sure.
Like
she looks great.
For 24 years later, I was like, man, yeah. She's like, yeah, amazing.
Right. And I think there's a few other actors who did come back, including the Senator Gracchus, who I was kind of surprised to see back, but I'm like, oh, good. This guy's back.
Provides some continuity,
almost like unceremoniously like gets killed, in that final
that was one of those weird kind of choices, right? Where that Senator Gracchus is like in the background in that arena in the final fight is like, or the Coliseum rather, in the final fight is like, oh yeah, he was kind of like not a main character, but like a main side character. And the first one is like, and this one too, he shows up, is like, okay, just kind of casually gets murdered in the background. It's like, okay, I guess he's done.
I guess he's done now. Like, it would have been great if he was like a through line, because they're planning more movies. Like, they want to make more. And if they had this guy play more, like play Gracchus in a few more movies, I thought that would be a neat through line. Anyways, he's gone. Maybe he'll make a recovery. But also we've got Denzel Washington showing up here. And
oh my God.
I mean, this guy Denzel is just like on top of his game in every movie he shows up. And he brings so much life to this film and to his role here. He's kind of like the Oliver Reed character from the first one, where he's like, he owns all the slaves and he's kind of getting them all trained. And, he's a lot like that character. His character here is a lot more involved in like the politics of it in the story. A lot more evil for sure. Yeah.
But Denzel Washington was having the time of his life. Like he was chewing that scenery so hard. Like,
yeah,
it was something to behold. It was amazing. Like you're saying, like Denzel Washington is one of those people. It's like, he is a movie star. He's got that charisma. You watch him on screen and just like, you can't look away. Right. Of course. But it was I wasn't laughing at his performance. I was laughing along because it was so diabolical and so kind of over the top. I was kind of laughing with glee at how much fun he was obviously having with this villainous character. It was so great.
One of the almost a side story where part of his rise to power is like betting on these gladiator fights, and there's this other like rich dude who I don't even know all the details, because I'm not like fully paying attention to how much they're like, oh, we're gonna like double or nothing here, and then Denzel just waltzes into this dude's house, and it's just like,
movie,
yeah, like, you owe me a lot of money, man. And it's just like, oh, we can work something out. He's like, no, I own your house now. And he's just like, you can leave. You can leave right now, but this house is mine. And he just moves in. It's such a crazy amazing baller move. I'm like, what just happened there? Like, that was a funny moment in the movie. That's like, even these little side stories, because may not be relevant to the whole thing, but like throws so much behind his character. Like, he is out for blood, and he's not like, he's willing to step on some people, and he does get pretty manipulative as the film goes on. But he's great. What a great role.
100%. Overall, yeah, he was great. Connie Nielsen was great having her back. It was kind of neat, kind of Pedro Pascal and what's the other dude's name again? After Sun Man.
Paul Mescal.
Yeah, it felt like they were almost kind of co-protagonists for a while in the movie.
Yeah.
Until that showdown where they're both in the arena, they have to fight each other, and then Pedro Pascal gets turned into a human pincushion there. I was kind of like, no, they're gonna get along. It's like, oh, the good guy, they're gonna team up. They realize they put aside their differences and they team up, and they're gonna take down the evil twin emperors. I was like, nah, he's just done. I was like, okay, yeah. It was like, it made sense for the emperor because they wanted to kill him. And it's like, if they would have let him live, it was like, oh, that's what I wanted to see as an audience member. But in terms of like the characters, it's like, and like the logic of the movie is like, no, they wanted to kill him, so they killed him. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. 100% makes sense.
It's a tough scenario to get out of when you're surrounded by thousands of people in the Coliseum, but also like the entire arena is lined with, the emperor's personal guard and their expert archers and stuff. And they do make it clear, like, there's no other like soldiers in the city, right? Like, having soldiers march into Rome is a pretty significant deal at the time. And it's like the Praetorian Guard is all you've got, and they're loyal to the emperors, emperors in this case. And these two emperors, these brothers here, like, they are all like I don't want to say like almost cartoonishly villainous, but like they definitely
They are,
do
yeah.
take a back seat to the delightfully villainous Denzel Washington, like as he gets more villainy throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Like these guys are just
Gains power.
like they don't want you to forget that these guys are awful people and they're kind of dummies too, right? But
Yeah, it was really interesting. One of the thoughts watching Gladiator 2 was really, you can see, like I was thinking about kind of the geopolitical climate in which those movies were made, and I think it's reflected in the movies, right? Where you look at the first one was made in the year 2000, obviously before 9/11, which happened the year after. But there's this idea of, that idea of like, oh, there was a dream that was Rome. If you just whispered it, it would disappear, kind of thing. And you had the protagonist was this, honorable man who didn't want power. And it felt like, yeah, like the way they depicted Rome was like, yeah, there's some problems with the institutions, but if we give power back to the people led by an honorable man, we can turn things around, right? There's this sense of underlying kind of sense of hope or optimism. We can turn it around. And you look at Gladiator 2 made in 2024, and, you look at, the division in politics in the US specifically, kind of, seen with the most recent election down there. And you just see kind of the vitriol back and forth, and to see the emperors going from, like now that like the heart of Rome is completely corrupt, and like metaphorically, and it's manifested literally in the one guy. He has some kind of STI where it's affecting his, it's literally rotting his brain away, and he's going crazy. And you have like in the first one, the main character, Maximus, he wins over the crowd by showing mercy. And in this one, it's just like the main character turns out to be Lucius, the kid from the first one. He's driven by rage, and he's not going to spare anyone. And that's how he wins over the crowd, is like he's this unstoppable force once he gets the rage going through. And you see even at that ending confrontation between like the armies marching into Rome and the Praetorian Guard, and they're, and there's the speech at the end where he's like, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We need to step down no matter what side we're on. Is like, that feels very much aimed at the American people specifically at this point. And it's just like really interesting to see how those characters, like where Lucius comes full circle, is like, yeah, he has to give up his rage and kind of become this leader to like heal this clear divide in the nation, not just among the rich and the poor, but, kind of politically as well. It's like, I was watching this like, oh yeah, this is a movie made by somebody this is an American filmmaker made in the year 2024, specifically talking to the audience about like, we need to set this aside before we come up to like kind of full scale war here. It's like, I think it's really interesting to look back through that lens and see, oh yeah, Gladiator was clearly a movie made more optimistic and more hopeful from the year 2000. And then 2024 was a bit more, the Gladiator 2 in 2024 was a bit more kind of cynical, or looking at like, oh yeah, this political divide has actually deepened since 2000. It's like, okay, you can really see that kind of play. It was really interesting, I thought, to see whether consciously or unconsciously how that kind of played into the characters and the plot as well, right?
yeah, that's a really astute observation. Really, yeah, we joined this Rome and it's in turmoil. These emperors are not popular, but like they sort of rule with an iron fist and like just sheer terror. And then you have like riots going on, and there's such a huge riot where Denzel's character is able to convince one of the emperors. I think this is the guy suffering from the STI, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the guy who's like being brain rotted out. He's just like, oh yeah, like your brother's going to use this riot against you.
Blame it on you.
Blame it on you, and like to get you out. So like we should take care of him now. And to the point where his brother's just like, oh yeah, like let's go kill my brother. And Denzel helps, like, the slicing hand. Like what a heinous crime to kill an emperor, right? And he's out there helping
brother against brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like the gore, like I was actually pleasantly surprised that they did not pull back on the gore in this one, considering like most mainstream movies this day, I think they tend to pull back from, was like, there were some pretty gory scenes in this. I was like, I appreciate that as well. It was like really in line with the first movie too.
Yeah. No, like like we want to talk like visually for a minute here. Like the movie looked really nice.
Looked amazing, right? I was like, yeah.
When you watch
Ridley
from
Scott
back
still,
to back,
Ridley Scott still got, people talk about, oh, Ridley Scott's lost it. I wasn't a huge fan of Napoleon, the movie. I'm going to be honest here. But like watching Gladiator is like, you can't tell me Ridley Scott is done. Like this guy still got it.
there's a lot of visual consistency between the two movies, which,
oh yeah,
when you consider 24 years apart, is probably a difficult task to accomplish.
Especially how old's the dude now? Like in his 80s, or he's in his 80s at least, right?
Yeah, Ridley's getting up there. He's born in 1937.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to do math on the podcast.
Yeah. If you do, we'll edit it out afterwards.
It's like that meme of like the formula is floating around my head.
So one of the things you mentioned was Paul Mescal's character Hanno, who turns out to be Lucius, the little boy from.
What'd you think about that reveal?
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. Like,
okay.
It was a reveal, but it was a reveal that was like very, I want to say, pretty telegraphed through it. It's just like, okay, this is fine.
When I mentioned earlier that I'd guessed the plot twist, that was the plot twist I had guessed. When I saw him there, I assumed this was Lucius, who had kind of gone into hiding. So
what I did not see really coming is that
yes,
Lucius turns out to be Maximus's son.
Yeah.
Now, this actually kind of disturbed me. This is, if you want to throw out a meme face, this is like me very quizzically like watching the film, be like, okay, because I'm watching the movie afterwards, like the first Gladiator, and I think there's a scene where Maximus talks to Lucius, or he's talking to Connie Nielsen's character there, Lucilla, and it was just like, hey, my son is like turning like 12 years old right now, or 10 years old or something. And Maximus is like, oh, I have a son age the same. I'm like, okay, great. They both had their kids around the same time. Maximus's son is brutally, like, he's crucified, right? We don't fully see it in the first movie, but his wife and his son are crucified. And then we fast forward to Gladiator 2, and I find out that Lucius is also Maximus's son, around the same age, but like you cannot tell me that Maximus, who Goober cried all over his dead wife's feet, was so emotional, so driven. All he wanted to do was go to the afterlife, that he had another.
I don't think he had an affair. I think the timeline kind of adds up where clearly in the first movie, clearly in their youth, right, there was kind of a back and forth, right? They had some kind of pre-existing relationship. So I was like, at first I was like, but then I was like kind of working through it in my head. I was like, okay, they could have had they had like a one night stand, but like obviously she was a different person back then too, and he was a different person. And then, okay, had a one night stand. He goes off, meets this woman who's going to become his wife, and they have a kid within that same. So it's possible that, he could have impregnated her. She wouldn't have told him. She would have kept it a secret, right? Because of, because she politics, employees, and all this stuff going on. So I don't think it takes away. If you look at the timeline, it doesn't necessarily take away from Maximus's character, right? If he didn't know that was his kid, if she kept it from him, that they could have had like a little one night stand and realized like, no, we're not meant to be together. He goes off, meets his wife, and they have a kid. They could still technically both be 12, and the timeline still works, right? So it's not. In my mind, is like, yeah, like it's a bit of a stretch. And was it a necessary retcon? I don't think so. But it just helped build that continuity between the characters. And it's like, you know what? It works. I was able to, because the film was so good. I was like, you know what? I will buy what you're selling me in this case to have that kind of continuity of the character. It's a bit of a stretch, but I don't have to stretch so far. They don't have to retcon the kids' ages. You can have that same timeline, and he can still be the devoted, honorable, general and husband and father, and still have, in his youth, kind of, had these little. He was a soldier in his youth with a beautiful young woman. I was like, things happen, right? So it's like, yeah, of course, he was a human being as well, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
so you're telling me if Connie Nelson came onto you, like you're not going to consider? Come on.
it was just one of those things I noted when I was watching the movie. It was just like gave me a little pause, and I was like, well,
It
in the
did,
first
right?
movie he did say, well, I have a son about that age, and I mean, granted that like he may not have even seen his son for like a year or two because he's on campaign for the emperor here, right? Where it's like, you know what, I'm not getting hung up on details like that. I just thought it was almost a strange choice that he does end up being the son. It was like, it's not enough that he was so iconic at Rome and like the people loved him so much that this little boy would look up to him and be like, man, that Gladiator. And when he's told the story of like who this guy is, it's like he would, you know, have a lot of respect for this guy. And it almost felt like we're going to make him your father too. Where it's just like now you have that direct connection.
Yeah.
Which didn't seem necessary.
If I were writing this, would I have felt it necessary? No. To me, it was like, it was almost a sign of almost insecurity. It's like, oh, we can't let the character stand on his own. We need to have a more direct connection.
Yeah.
Would I have done that? Would I have written that? No. But, you know, over the, like they mentioned it, I was just like, eh. And as the movie kept going on, I was like, okay, it works. I'll accept this. It doesn't break anything from the first movie. There's been so many other movies where they retcon stuff so much worse than that. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Like, I was enjoying the movie, so if I didn't enjoy the movie, I would have probably gone the other way, right? But it's like it didn't break immersion for me. It was a stumbling block for sure. When I first heard that, it was just like, whoa, what? Wait, sorry, come again? And I was like, okay, I get it. I know why they were doing it from a narrative perspective. It's like, okay, it's fine. That's what
about using the dead wife as the same motivation, right? Where it's just like, that's what he's going for.
It's World of Gladiator. Wives are going to die. That's what they do.
That's what they do. Is that the woman in the refrigerator, like trope that
they got? Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. You know, I gotta, you know, admit kind of the flaws or the failings. The first movie too, you know, the wife and kid get fridged. And this one, it felt like the fridging happened. It was a lot more blatant.
Yeah.
Right. At least in the other one, there was a build up and he's like, oh, they had some happy times together, obviously. And they were like it showed them living in this idyllic lifestyle. And this one felt was like, no, they introduced her and killed her right away. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. It was like, this one felt a little worse because like, oh, she's a warrior too. She can take care of herself. The other one's like, they were just civilians, right?
Yeah. And
this one is like, no, she's a warrior. She's a badass. She's going to have a big part of this movie. It's like, oh, this is awesome. And it's like, nah, she's dead. It's like she did not have the proper plot armor. Like,
yeah.
Lucius's armor later on in the movie, it was real armor. Hers was not real armor. That arrow went right through that thing. There was nothing. There was nothing. It was like, she might as well be wearing like just a t-shirt on that. Right? Like it was pretty bad.
One of the things I did enjoy about this movie, and I almost kind of forgot from the first film when I was watching it, was the depiction of the afterlife and then how connected they would be to that, to where his wife dies. And we get to, like, he's having a vision when he's like drowning or passed out of her, like about to cross the river Styx, I assume. I'm not familiar with my mythology, but he's there and like he wants to go out to her. Like he's ready to die. He wants to get on that boat with her, right? And there's multiple callbacks to it was like he knows what afterlife he has to look forward to, and they're not afraid to show us bits of it. And the same thing happened in Gladiator, where it's just like, yeah, where like there's just visions of the afterlife, like the big gates, the big city walls, and it's like when he's walking. Obviously, the last scene is him dead, like going through the field, like put his hands through the tall wheat, the tall grass, and joining them through the gate. But it's pretty iconic. So I was happy to see some of that in here. I'm not sure if that's a point.
It was kind of again.
Discussing.
It was like, did you really need to copy Visions of the Afterlife? But at least it was a different. So it was like it's kind of neat. Everybody almost has like their own vision of what their idyllic, what the afterlife is going to be based on their understanding of mythology. I think that was his vision was like closer to kind of the Greek mythology of Charon and the river Styx, which kind of fit in because there was another time when he was quoting, who was it, Virgil or something? But he was quoting.
Oh yeah.
He was quoting another, Roman, was it Greek or Roman poets? It was like okay, he had a classical education, and then even that saying that he has, where it's like, where we are, death is not. Where death is, we are not. And I was trying to figure out what that meant, and I looked it up afterwards, and somebody online pointed out, oh, he was paraphrasing Epicurus, a Greek philosopher, who was talking about essentially what he means is there's no reason to be afraid of death, right? It was a call to not be afraid of death, because if you're alive, then death's not near you, so there's no need to be afraid of it. And if death is here, then you're no longer alive, so there's no need to worry about death anymore, right? So the whole thing is like, where we are, death is not. Where death is, we are not. It's essentially an entreaty. It's a paraphrasing of Epicurus, but it's like essentially he's telling people, it's like, there's no reason to be afraid of death. We're not afraid of death, right? So it's like, oh, that's cool. It's like another callback to like, oh, he's a classical education, right? He came from he was in the palace, and then when he was hidden, he had people teaching him. It was like, oh, this is it fits with the character. I was like, oh, this is really cool that they had this through. There was some thought put behind the character, and it's like the little beats like that. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
That's tight.
Yeah.
We got to bring the writer into this discussion here for stuff like that, obviously.
Oh, do we have him on, ready to go? Surprise interview? Surprise guest.
Surprise guest. Could you imagine? David Scarpa, folks, who has worked with Ridley Scott in the past, most notably maybe on Napoleon.
Sorry. Do I need to take back what I said?
As well as All the Money in the World, which was a decent Ridley Scott film.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I really like that one.
David Scarpa also has credit on The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Keanu Reeves 2008 remake.
I really enjoyed that movie, too.
As well as The Last Castle, which stars none other than Robert Redford and James Gandolfini.
I've got the Kino Lorber 4K sitting on my shelf right now. I love that movie.
Nice. I've never seen it. I'm not even sure I heard of it before.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
There's a lot of good stuff happening in this movie. And I think, like, initial reactions were I think everyone felt the same way. It's just like, we don't want a sequel to Gladiator. But at the end of it, I was quite happy we had this movie. And I was quite happy we have a Ridley Scott directed film.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it got a bunch of budget because it looks gorgeous.
When's the last time we got like a Sand and Sandals epic in the past, 20 years? Like, I think that's a genre that's really kind of faded away. So like in 2024 to get a movie in that genre again, it feels like it's a bit more special now. It used to be bigger back in the day. It used to be kind of more common. It was like, this is it feels almost like a throwback, right?
And without it being like 100% CGI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I think when 300 came out, it was pretty bold in its filmmaking style. Like it's filmed entirely on a soundstage, blue screen. Like they were able to do neat visual things with it. That was a very specific artistic choice.
Yes.
And I think a lot of movies afterwards, I'm just thinking of
they
recent
copied
ones.
It hardcore, yeah.
Like Arrow came out with a Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans 4K double feature, which I almost pre-ordered because I thought it was the original Clash of the Titans. It is not. It's the newer ones there. And it's like, I think they took that same idea as like, oh, all these old fantasy movies, this whole fantasy genre here, the sword and sandals, we can just film it all up like 300. And we're just going to CGI everything. And they all look so bland. But here, I don't know if maybe it's the budget. Maybe it's Ridley Scott, the cinematographer as well. They made it look really great. And one of the comments I had, even leaning before watching the movie, like we're standing in line buying our popcorn, part of the appeal was the first Gladiator was talking about this, like recreating the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And what a huge feat that was for this movie to do. And it's like they studied all this architecture, they recreated it. It was supposed to be like a really faithful adaptation of the original thing, even though I think they futzed with the scale just to like make it cinematic, right? Which is fine. And this movie, there is no preconceived notion, no hype on like recreating anything historic in it. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going to see the Colosseum a lot. It's literally just going to probably be an asset that was created 5 years ago by a bunch of really talented visual artists, and we're going to see it from different angles. It's like the VFX are just so seamless now. Everything looks fantastic. Even
seamless is the word, yeah.
Even the sea battle in the Colosseum looks really great. Although, I mean, I don't really want to talk about the historical inaccuracies on stuff, but
so
it was
that was kind of cool because there were accounts of them flooding the arena and having, I don't think the boats would actually move like that, but they actually did flood the arena at some point and have like mock naval battles in the Colosseum. That's loosely based on historical accounts. Right? So that was kind of cool.
But there were no killer sharks released into it, But it was like,
I would think not. No, and
right?
and I think just to get kind of nerdy a bit about historical, I think they would have flooded it earlier in its history because I think as it went along, they built more and more underground chambers under it, so you couldn't really flood that in later times. I think it would have been flooded earlier, so like it's almost like it's kind of switched. But it was kind of cool where it's like it's not entirely something made up. It was like there are historical accounts that they actually did this, that they were so elaborate that they flooded the entire arena and had mock naval battles, which is pretty crazy. To actually see it as a student of history, to see that kind of depicted on screen. And that's the first time in looking at like historical epics about Rome that I saw that particular, part of history kind of recreated. Like that was pretty cool.
And I think what really works for me in that, and killer sharks aside, and at the very least, it gets people who see that and be like, I don't believe they put water in the Colosseum. Yeah. They'll go look it up and they'll go read Wikipedia and they'll discover, oh my God, this stuff actually did happen. Not as depicted in the movie necessarily, but like they did a lot of crazy things a long time ago and it was spectacular. The other element that I really did like in terms of the animals, like the killer sharks, was the baboon fight. Where he's out in the other stadium early in his Gladiator career and takes off these baboons. I'm like, the movie was almost losing me. I don't want to see very clearly like CGI baboons going absolutely bananas and tearing people apart. I don't want to see that.
B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
Copyright strike.
Yeah, we're done now. Gwen Stefani is shutting down the podcast.
But as you said, like the movie has this quality to it that I think I called it just entertaining. At the end, I'm like, you know what? I'm giving this high score because I found it to be really entertaining. And I can look past a lot of these little weird things that ultimately don't really matter. Like it was still a well put together movie. It was still fairly compelling. I've seen one comment where they're like, they moved too quickly. Like it would have been better maybe as a longer film or something. It's like, maybe, but like, I'm not looking away for
the pacing was pretty good.
2.5 hour duration of this thing. It was good. I really enjoyed going out to the movie and seeing this in a pretty packed theater too. It was nice to see people come out for this movie.
Yeah, no, I liked Lucius's journey where like, okay, you figure out why he hates Rome because he felt like Rome kind of turned his back on it or because the dream was lost. And you kind of see him through, it's like, okay, he's regaining his faith in the dream that his grandfather had, Marcus Aurelius had about Rome. I was like, okay, that was kind of cool. So there's a clear journey there. What I also liked about that character was like, I think it was kind of neat to see kind of the power scaling of the different warriors in this movie where, Lucius, for in some arenas, like, he's a powerful warrior and he's beating guys up. But he's also taking his hits too, right? Like I love when he's fighting Pedro Pascal and Pedro Pascal is like, this world weary, honorable general. I don't know if he reminds you of anybody. I don't know, probably not, but but he comes in and that fight between them, I was gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be kind of like, be like fight to a draw. And Pedro Pascal goes in and just he is clearly he's clearly on top and he's kicking his butt, but he's holding back. He's not delivering the killer blow. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting to see. He's like, oh yeah, the hero is not this unstoppable force. He actually has to fight to kind of earn his victories. Yeah. And it was kind of nice. It's like, yeah, Pedro Pascal's got him on the ropes. he could have taken him out, but then he puts down his weapon and is like, I'm not your enemy. I submit myself to your will, kind of thing. And it's like, and like that whole scene was just, it was kind of spoiled a little bit in the trailers, the fight between them.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for that to come. I was like, how are they going to resolve this? And how's that going to be set up? I was like, I thought it was pretty cool. Like, and you looked at the different certain characters, like, yeah, like clearly Lucius's character is just a one-on-one fight is just not going to be able to take this guy down. Even that end fight between him and what was the name of his actual character?
Who are we talking about?
Denzel Washington.
Macronus.
Yeah, like that fight at the end, because Macronus used to be a gladiator, I think they alluded to, right? It was like he was in retirement. And I think in real life, like Denzel's like 70 or something. I don't know how that's possible. He does not look like he's 70. But they had that fight, and it's like, oh yeah, he's clearly a bigger dude, right? Denzel's a I don't know what his dimensions are, but he's a big dude, right? And he's like beating Lucius up here, and it's like, oh yeah, he's got to fight. He doesn't just, it's not just like a simple win here. He's got to fight tooth and nail every inch. I was like, I thought that was really, I really appreciated that, because they could have made it as like, oh yeah, he's Maximus's son, so he's unstoppable. And he's like, oh yeah, he's got some, the magic blood syndrome kind of thing, right? But he didn't. He had to, in some fights, it's like, oh yeah, he was the better fighter. And then it's like, yeah, other fights, it's like, oh no, clearly, he was clearly outmatched, and he was, he had to fight kind of tooth and nail. So like, I thought the character was pretty well done.
Very, very well done. Very good movie. Are there any other points you want to bring up before we head into ratings of this film?
No, I think we covered kind of the main points. Also, it was kind of nice. I know other people were complaining about this online, but that whole buildup at the end where you think, oh, it's going to be a big fight between the Praetorian Guard and that Legion in the city, and that Legion coming in. And Lucius comes down and gives a speech about how, oh, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We need to, like, there's this dream about Rome, and we can make that dream again, but we have to, the first thing we have to do is just like, we can't fight brother against brother. And you see both sides like, okay, we're going to take a risk, put our swords away. And that having no battle, that agreement is like, okay, we're gonna try trusting each other to see if we can rebuild again, as opposed to having an excuse because they could have easily had, we just want to have a big full scale battle at the end, just for fun. It's like, no, like they clearly had, like Ridley Scott clearly had something, and the writer, right? They clearly had something that they wanted to say, something important about the nature of, like, maybe every conflict should not result in violence, right? Maybe maybe there is some healing that needs to take place, between our nation and between people of different political stripes, that we need to set aside some differences and come together for some things. That seemed to be a pretty powerful message, pretty poignant message, and a pretty relevant message. And I think that was intentional, I think, given the political climate, not just in the US, but you look at the rise of authoritarian governments worldwide right now and the traction they're getting, and, see some, like, division in politics among, even in Canada, we're seeing more and more driven by, whatever it is, whether it's interference by Russia and China or online dialogue, where like social media can be manipulated so easily. And it's like, I think there was a really important message in this day and age, is like, stop, think before it comes to violence. Let's, put aside some differences and see if we can talk things through. And, that call to kind of unity, I think was deliberate and timely and necessary. So it was nice to see that they didn't just give out. It was like, oh, they could have just made a full scale battle, bunch of blood and guts, but they chose not to. And I thought, okay, this was a really great choice for the end of the movie.
Well said. All right, we got to talk about ratings, and as we do, we want to play a little game first of guess the ratings on 3 different sites that we frequent: Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, and IMDb. I finally figured out how to play along, where I just make my own guesses hours before preparing for the show, before I look at the results.
It only took us 3 years.
It took us 3 years. You know what? It's better to be reach the goal at some point than never at all, but it is what it is. If you're playing along at home, see how close you can get, and then let us know. Send us a message there. We start off with Rotten Tomatoes. They do the critic and audience rating out of 100%. How many critics, what's the percentage of critics who found the movie favorable on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to guess the critics are lower than the general public and say 68.
68? I guess 65% for critic. And the answer, as time of recording, is 71%.
Okay.
We're both fairly close, but
my initial guess was
higher. I was being a little more pessimistic on the critic response, I think.
Yeah, me too.
How about the audience rating on this?
I was going to go like 76 for the audience.
76? I guess 72%. And it is again higher at 82%.
Oh, right on.
It is maybe worth noting, like, the film had a budget reportedly between $200 and $300 million, which just seems to be standard for all these. And it seems to be making money. It was nearing $400 million when I checked.
That's not like not a runaway success, but I will say, unlike some other blockbusters, you can see every dollar on screen though. With that 300 million, if it was that, it's like you can see it on there.
IMDb, their users have the 10-point scale. What is the IMDb average user rating?
7.7.
7.7. I guess 6.4.
Okay.
And the actual rating right now is a 6.9. Split the difference between us. And finally, our platform of choice, the one we log all our movies at, you can find us there. Letterboxd average user score.
I keep going low here, so maybe we'll go, I don't know. No, I'm going to say 3.2. I'm going to go with my gut 3.2?
I had guessed 3.3.
Okay.
And the actual average is 3.4 right now.
Oh, that was my second guess. No. That's your second guess. I need to start second guessing myself.
It's kind of interesting. After I did my guesses, I was going through the people I follow and reading some of the reviews, and I got a fair bit of negativity out of the reviews. And
yeah,
I have I think it's built into Letterboxd. If it's not, there's a little browser extension that does this, where it gives me a different graph for ratings from friends. And my friends, I follow their friends, the people I follow. Yeah. They have an average of 3.1 on the movie, which might be reflected in some of their more critical reviews, like a lot of 2.5, a lot of 3 stars for the film.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I was reading some online reviews on the R Movies subreddits, and I don't know, people there did not seem to like this movie.
I wonder if they have a structure of rating their movies and aggregating them somewhere that we could pull in sometime.
Be curious.
Because it's always interesting how these different communities come together, the type of users that frequent these sites. Like IMDb has been established for a long time. A lot of people use it. And I think a lot of people have been logging movies there and like rating them for a very long time. And they have a very specific formula on how that 10-point average is calculated. It's not just a straight up average. And Letterboxd may be the same thing. It may calculate that 3.4 a little bit differently, where it gives a certain weight to certain reviews, right? Not necessarily users, but like when they're logged.
I hadn't thought about that, because I was reading it was completely something different. It was for Board Game Geek. But there's a formula to account for kind of review bombs and stuff, right? That they use to to even out like the really extreme scores on either end. So yeah, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, that makes sense. They would have to do that, especially, given sometimes people just like go through and like rate something, everything 5 stars or everything 1 star or something. So yeah, they have to have some kind of built-in formula to kind of compensate for that, right? So yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
If there's one through line in these reviews on Letterboxd, that everyone loves Denzel Washington's character and the way he played it.
Well, again, you talk about the difference between, an actor and a movie star. And, again, was it Paul Mescal was the main character in this? And like, this is not throwing shade at him, but you look at him versus Russell Crowe and you see like, okay, I get why, Russell Crowe was a movie star.
Yeah. And
like Paul Mescal is like, I'm not, because he did a really good job, right? But there's just something, certain people just have that kind of charisma. And Denzel Washington is like, you watch him on anything he's in, and you're just like, you're drawn to this guy. Like, I keep going back to like one of the classic Training Day, right? And it's just like, or I recently rewatched Deja Vu as part of like time travel movie kind of marathon. I was like, not a huge fan of the movie. Didn't blow me away, but watching Denzel Washington is like, I can watch this guy do anything. This guy, it's so amazing just watching him. Like there's just something about him, this energy or this charisma, right? And it's like, he was having the time of his life, and it showed on screen, right? He was a standout for sure.
I mean, Russell Crowe won Best Actor.
Oh yeah,
Oscar. I think there was did Gladiator win Best Picture?
I believe so. Yeah.
Holy jeez. All right. Let us reveal our ratings, because this is why you're listening. This is what we're here for. The number, out of 5 stars.
Hard data.
Right? What is your 5-star? Where did you land on your 5-star scale for Gladiator 2?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. Came in with kind of mixed expectations. One, A, on the one hand, Gladiator is one of my favorite movies, and I love it. So like, high expectations, but also B, it's a 24-year later sequel, and look at the track record. Long story short, I came away. I really enjoyed this movie way more than I thought I would. I was a bit more on the cynical side. I was like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't even gonna go. You kind of encouraged me to go see it in the theater. I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. Partially was like, I'll get to go see this with my son, because I think I saw this with my dad initially in the theater way back in the day. So I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, generational thing. I really enjoyed this. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Not quite as good as the original, but way, way better than I was expecting. So yeah, 4 out of 5. I was entertained with this movie, and it was like a couple small tweaks would have put it up into like 4.5 5-star rating for me. It was just like, but overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this. What's your rating on this?
I landed on 4 stars as well.
All right.
I was, like you said, I was entertained. There's a tagline here that says "Prepare to be entertained," and yeah, I was. Like, I walked out of the theater, I was quite happy. There's a few wiggly things throughout the movie that has me raising an eyebrow, and obviously you have to compare it to the original, and that original is a 5-star film for me. Like, I hadn't actually rated it until a couple weeks ago when I rewatched it. It's like, yeah,
you gave it the heart as well on Letterboxd. It looks like
easily.
You I didn't quite put the heart, so I don't know. You're the Gladiator expert here. It sounds like.
Well, I wouldn't say expert. I sometimes that heart just comes out because it's like, this is a nostalgia love for this movie as well. Like,
it was funny watching it again. I was like going through, and I was like, I could recite this entire script almost from beginning to end. It's like we must have watched that like on a weekly basis or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You could afford too many DVDs back then, so you just keep rewatching. This one and like Big Lebowski was just on repeat.
Repeat 24/7. Yeah.
But man, it's just like some of the scenes in that first one just give you chills. I don't think I'm gonna get that same feeling out of this movie. Like, I'm gonna watch it again probably when it comes out, and I'll probably buy it on 4K disc. Hopefully Definitely. It comes out on the format, of course. I'll probably buy it. I'll rewatch it, and maybe it climbs up, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but I was happy with the film, and I was also going in with a lot of trepidation. Like, I laughed at the idea that this movie was happening, and I didn't believe it.
It was like it become a meme at some point where like it was a joke almost among movie fans online. It was like, yeah, Gladiator 2, ha ha ha, kind of thing. It was like, so now we've got Gladiator 2. Now we just need a Braveheart 2, and then come full circle from our historical epics from the 90s and 2000s. Perfect.
Oh, my goodness. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us today and taking the time to listen to our podcast. You can find us online over at realfilmchronicles.com, where we have not just a repository of podcast episodes, but many of our written reviews as well. If you're up to it, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram as well. All the links should be within the show notes here. So until next time, take care of yourself and others, and be sure to enjoy your film journey.